Have you ever noticed how the moments you fear the most are often the moments that can change your life the most? Being alone feels scary for a lot of people, not because being alone is bad, but because when the noise stops, when the messages slow down, when nobody is around to distract you, you're finally left with the one person you can't run from, yourself. And that's exactly why most people avoid it. They stay busy. They stay available. They stay surrounded by noise, people, and constant stimulation, not because it makes them happy, because silence reveals truth. But here's the strange part. The very thing most people run from is often the thing that makes a person truly powerful. Because there's a kind of strength that only grows in solitude, not in crowds, not in attention, not in approval. Only in those quiet moments where you sit with your thoughts and finally begin to hear your own voice. If you've been feeling disconnected, overwhelmed, or strangely empty, even around people, this might be the message your mind has been waiting for. Because being alone is not punishment. Sometimes it's the beginning of becoming who you were always meant to be. There's a kind of pain people rarely talk about. It's the pain of always being around others, yet still feeling unseen. You laugh in conversations, reply to messages, show up at work, sit with family, maybe even spend time with friends. But deep down, something still feels off. Like no one really knows what's happening inside you. And maybe the hardest part is this: you've gotten so used to filling every empty moment that you no longer know how to simply be with yourself. The phone comes out during silence. Music plays in the background. Videos run while eating. Messages are checked before bed. Anything to avoid that quiet space. Because in that quiet space, all the thoughts you pushed away start coming back. The disappointment, the regret, the fear, the question of whether you're really living the life you want. This is why so many people think being alone is weakness. They confuse loneliness with solitude. But they are not the same. Loneliness is feeling abandoned. Solitude is choosing space. And that choice can change everything. Because the moment you stop running from yourself, you finally get the chance to meet yourself. Really meet yourself. The version of you hidden beneath the expectations, the roles, the constant pressure to please everyone else. And once that happens, life begins to feel different, calmer, clearer, more honest. I remember a man who spent years chasing approval. At work, he said yes to everything. With friends, he acted like someone he wasn't. In relationships, he stayed longer than he should have just because he feared being alone. From the outside, his life looked full, but inside, he was exhausted. One day, after a painful breakup, he found himself alone in his apartment on a quiet Sunday. No plans, no messages, no distractions. At first, it felt unbearable. The silence was loud. He kept reaching for his phone, opening apps, closing them, pacing the room. But after a while, something shifted. He sat down by the window and just stayed there. No music, no scrolling, no escape. And for the first time in years, he asked himself a simple question: what do I actually want? Not what others expected, not what sounded impressive, not what kept people around. What he wanted. That question changed his life. Because most people never slow down enough to ask it. They build lives around avoiding emptiness, not around truth. And this is where things change. Being alone gives you something the world rarely gives freely: perspective. When you step away from the constant opinions of others, You start seeing your own patterns. You notice how often you betray your own needs just to keep peace. You notice how many of your goals were borrowed from other people. You notice how much energy goes into pretending. That awareness is powerful, because awareness is the beginning of freedom. Think about the times you made your worst decisions. Maybe it was staying in the wrong relationship, accepting disrespect, buying into a path that didn't feel right, reacting emotionally during an argument. Most of those moments happened when you were disconnected from yourself, too influenced by noise, too afraid of what people would think, too desperate not to lose someone. But solitude creates distance between emotion and action. It gives your mind room to breathe. A woman once told me that every major mistake in her life came from fear of being alone. She stayed at a job that drained her for 6 years because the office made her feel needed. She kept toxic friends because silence at home made her uncomfortable. She even ignored her own values in relationships just to avoid empty weekends. Then one evening, after another exhausting day, she came home, sat on the edge of her bed, and realized something painful. She wasn't afraid of being alone. She was afraid of hearing the truth, that she had built her life around avoiding herself. That realization hurt, but it also freed her, because once she faced it, she started changing small things. Morning walks alone, coffee without her phone, journaling at night, saying no when she meant no. Little by little, being alone stopped feeling heavy. It started feeling sacred. That's the part most people don't realize. Solitude is where your real standards are born. When you enjoy your own company, you stop accepting anything that disturbs your peace. You stop chasing people who give mixed signals. You stop explaining your worth. You stop forcing connections that only exist to fill silence. Because now, peace feels better than chaos. And once peace becomes your standard, your whole life changes. But here's the truth. The real power of being alone is not peace. It's self-respect. Because every time you choose to sit with yourself instead of begging for attention, you send your mind a message. I am enough. That message rebuilds a person from the inside. It changes how you walk into rooms, how you respond to disrespect, how you recover from rejection. You no longer need every door to open. You no longer need everyone to like you. And this is where most people start to become unshakable. There's a quiet confidence that grows when you know you can survive your own company. No validation, no applause, no constant reassurance, just you. Strong enough to hold your own mind. A lot of people spend their lives terrified of empty spaces, but empty spaces are where clarity lives. Think about a stressful argument. In the heat of the moment, emotions rise fast, words come out sharp, ego takes over. But later, when you're alone, replaying the moment in silence, something becomes obvious. What was really said, what really hurt, what actually mattered. That's the gift of solitude. It slows truth down enough for you to see it. A young man once got passed over for a promotion he worked hard for. He was angry, humiliated, ready to quit. That night, instead of calling everyone to complain, he took a long walk alone. No music, just his thoughts. At first, all he felt was frustration. But after a while, the deeper truth surfaced. He realized it wasn't only about the promotion. It was years of tying his worth to recognition. Years of believing success only counted if others noticed. That lonely walk gave him something no praise ever could: self-awareness. A year later, he started his own business, not from revenge, from clarity. This is why being alone can become the most powerful choice you make, because it forces you to separate who you are from what the world says about you. And once you do that, your decisions become cleaner. You stop acting from insecurity. You start acting from alignment. Halfway through this journey, something unexpected usually happens. The same silence that once scared you starts to feel like relief. And that moment matters, because it means your mind is no longer addicted to noise. It means you're beginning to trust yourself. This is the turning point, the rehook in your life, the place where solitude stops feeling like loss and starts feeling like strength. Most people never reach this point because they leave too early. They rush back into distractions before the lesson arrives. But if you stay, if you remain in that uncomfortable quiet just a little longer, you start hearing answers you couldn't hear before. What you need to let go of. Who drains your energy? Which dream still matters? What fear has been controlling your choices? The answers were always there. Noise just buried them. And this is where things truly change. Because once you trust your own inner voice, outside voices lose power. Criticism hurts less. Rejection stings less. Waiting bothers you less. You become rooted, like a tree that no longer bends with every passing wind. That inner stability is rare, and rare things are powerful. There's also another side to being alone that people don't talk about enough. Creativity. The best ideas often come in quiet moments, in the shower, on a walk, late at night, sitting by a window, not because inspiration is random, because your mind finally has room. When life is always full of noise, your deeper thoughts never get a chance to rise. But solitude creates space for insight, a better decision, a new direction, a simple truth you've been avoiding. Sometimes the breakthrough you're praying for is waiting inside a quiet hour. No one can hear your real wisdom louder than you can in silence, and maybe this is the deepest lesson of all. Being alone teaches you that your life does not need to be full to be meaningful. It needs to be true. Some people are surrounded by attention and still feel empty. Others sit alone with peace in their hearts and feel whole. The difference is not the number of people around them. It's the relationship they have with themselves. When you build that relationship, you become dangerous in the best way. You stop settling. You stop chasing. You stop panicking when people leave, because you know how to stay with yourself. That kind of inner loyalty changes everything. Imagine waking up without the pressure to prove anything. Imagine not checking who texted first thing in the morning. Imagine making choices because they feel right, not because they'll impress others. That is freedom. And freedom begins in solitude. So, if life has recently made you alone, don't rush to label it as loss. Maybe this season is not taking something from you. Maybe it's giving something back. Your clarity, your voice, your standards, your peace. Maybe this quiet chapter is where your strongest self is being built. Not the loud self, not the performative self, the real self, the one that stays calm in chaos, the one that doesn't need to beg for love, the one that can walk away from what no longer fits, the one that finally trusts its own path. That version of you is born in silence. So don't fear being alone. Use it. Sit with it. Learn from it. Let it show you where you've been abandoning yourself. Let it teach you how strong you already are. Because the person who can stand alone with peace in their heart becomes impossible to control, impossible to manipulate, impossible to break. And once you feel that kind of strength, you'll never again confuse loneliness with power. You'll know the truth. Being alone was never the punishment. It was the training. It was life's way of introducing you to your own strength. So the next time silence enters your life, welcome it. There may be no greater teacher and no greater gift than finally becoming your own home. If this spoke to something deep inside you and it helped you see your solitude in a new way, consider subscribing. There's a powerful, calm version of you waiting on the other side of silence, and you're already closer than you think.